Welcome to my online animation tutorial. Here you will learn to animate the following LEGO battle using bitmap images and simple keyframing. You'll need Adobe Photoshop to create two files with transparent backgrounds and then Adobe Animate for the rest. First you'll need to create a simple storyboard, so you'll need a pencil, paper and ruler, then some LEGO to make your spacecrafts, so we can photograph them and use them inside Adobe Animate. Here I am drawing out my grid of 12 boxes and numbering them 1 to 12. Can you tell what's happening in this short sequence? I'll explain it properly at the end and go through each frame I've drawn. It's always good practice to refine your storyboards. Here I'm adding a bit more detail so that things stand out a bit more clearly. I'm using a simple watercolour wash just to add a bit of colour into each frame. This helps me visualise what colour I'll be selecting in Adobe Animate. I've scanned my drawn storyboard in. Here it is. It looks really clean and crisp. We see our guy landing on a platform from above. Zooming in, we see him more clearly. Suddenly we hear an alarm and see a title screen. The platform zooms down and our guy flies off. There he is, flying through space, a planet whooshing past. Our guy fires his laser 3 times. He's in hot pursuit and he turns round and flies off. The bad guy comes into the foreground and swoops in to attack. Our guy engages his deflector shields. Our guy storms back in to confront his foe, letting off a volley of shots, destroying the bad guy, restoring order to the galaxy. So here are the LEGO creations that my children made. This is the bad guy. I think they look really good. This is the good guy, but it's a JPEG and it's not very good quality. This is a PNG file. I've removed the background. Select the Magic Wand tool and then click Select Subject. This will do all the hard work for you. Go to Edit, cut the image and then paste it. You can see in the Layers window that we've got a new layer. Now delete the background. Don't forget to save your image as a PNG. I've imported this into my tutorial just to show you how effective a transparent PNG is. Here we can see it flying around the screen. Using the oval selection tool and making sure that I've got a feather of 0, I'm able to draw a perfect circle inside my Play-Doh photograph. We're going to use the dodge and burn tool to create volume in the image, making it look more three-dimensional. With the dodge tool selected, select midtones from the range menu. Make sure that your exposure is set to around 33%. Using a fairly large brush, I'm able to paint very carefully over my image. Here you can see I'm making it lighter. Do the same with the burn tool. Select midtones, set your exposure to 33 and start painting below. We've turned this area to a shadow now, so select shadows from the drop down and just make that a little bit darker. Command X to cut, Command V to paste, then delete the background. Quickly crop it. And save it. Make sure you save it as a PNG file so that you get that transparent background. Here I am selecting a background image for my animation. I'm doing a quick Google image search. I'm selecting large to make sure that I get good quality images. Make sure that when you select usage rights, you're clicking labelled for reuse with modification. Find an image that you like. Here's one I really like. Make sure that you click the info button and just check the license before you download it. Here it is in Photoshop. It's going to look really cool when the spacecraft flies over it. I'm in Adobe Animate now. I'm setting my width to 800 and my height to 600. It's on the small side, but it's actually a perfect size to begin with. We now need to start importing our assets into the library. File, Import, Import to Library. You can see them stacking up in the library window. Here's the background, and I've also brought in an inverted version of it. And lastly, my planet. Don't forget to save your work. I'm just minimising my stage. The first thing I'm going to do is bring in my background. If I click and drag, you can see that I've dragged it to the stage, but it's invisible. That's because I've got outline switched on. To see it, just click the outline button. Click it on again. We now need to resize the image. I'm setting mine to around 60%. Command K brings the Align window up. Click Align to Stage, Distribute Horizontal Centers, Align Vertical Center. We can now lock the layer and click the Outline button. I'm turning this bitmap image into a symbol because I might want to edit it in some way. I might want to change the appearance of it, and you can only do that to a symbol. I'm selecting Graphic from the drop-down. Notice that it appears as a new entry in the library. Select Color Effect, Style Alpha, and take your alpha down to 66%. We're going to create a platform now in a new layer. We're going to do this using the Rectangle Shape tool, and we're going to fill it with a gradient fill. Select Linear Gradient. We're going to use the Gradient Transform tool just to manipulate the gradient scale. Using the Selection tool, double-click the outline and delete it. Command G to turn it into a grouped object. Command C, Command V to copy and paste it. Once you've aligned it with the Align tool, you can turn it into a symbol. Modify, convert to symbol. Name it, select Graphic and press OK. If you lock a layer, you won't be able to drag anything from the library onto it, so you must create a new layer. Window Transform to scale your object. Modify, convert to symbol, name it, select Graphic and press OK. So I want this good guy to drop in from above, and I want it to take around 1 second. Right click, insert frame. Right click at 1 second on the Goody layer. If you right click on the first layer of the Goody layer and press Create Classic Tween, we can click on the first keyframe. With the object selected, we can move it up, either by clicking and dragging it with our mouse or using the arrow keys on our keyboard. You can move the playhead freely to review your changes. We've created our first animation for this sequence. The good guy enters the frame from the top and lands comfortably on the platform. What I'm doing here is I'm extending my background layer and my platform to around 15 seconds. Remember to click and drag in one continuous movement and then right click without letting go of the mouse and insert frame. I've zoomed in for you so you can see how to do it. The keyframes that I'm adding here are for scene 2. Remember, this is where we zoom in to see our good guy on the platform more clearly. Here is the sequence so far. Scene 1 and 2 complete. Well done. I feel the gap between scene 1 and scene 2 is a little bit too big, so I'm going to remove some keyframes. Click and drag to select a range, right click, remove frames. Again, I've reduced the length of time for scene 2 by dragging the keyframes back a number of frames. You move them back to your desired location and letting go of the mouse will initiate the change. So we need a new layer for the intruder alert flashing screen. We also need to make those graphics, so we'll use the rectangle tool and the text tool to do that. So I'm introducing blank keyframes for this next stage of the animation. I intend to put my graphics in the first set of blank keyframes around 2 seconds, but this might actually change and I might move them when I review the animation. It's really helpful to lock off all layers except the one that you're working in. This means that you're not clicking on any other layers and breaking things like motion tweens. So I've drawn a large rectangle shape with a red fill. I've drawn it outside the stage area and I'm now going to turn it into a symbol. From the colour effect properties and the style drop down, I'm going to select alpha. I've used 44% as my value. Can you see that I'm making the intruder alert graphic in a new layer and I've locked off the red flash layer. I'm copying these 2 layers frames 3 times. Click and drag to select the frames. Right click copy frames. Move the playhead forward in time. Right click paste frames. Well done, we've already completed 3 scenes out of the 12. I've introduced a new keyframe into the Goody layer and I'm pressing Command Y on my keyboard just to repeat that action. I'm going to click in each keyframe and using the arrow keys on my keyboard, I'm just going to move my Goody symbol left, right, nudging it subtly here and there. This allows the viewer to feel that this is an actual machine vibrating with energy. Now that I've completed those 10 frames, I can copy them and paste them continuously and extend that vibration throughout the sequence. So we're back in the platform layer. I'm adding 2 keyframes about 5 or 6 keyframes apart. The second keyframe, we're just going to nudge the platform out of sight. And just create a classic motion tween from the first frame. Now, as the spaceship takes off, we would assume that the background might move subtly as well. So whatever our spaceship does, if it's going left, up, right or down, we need to move the background accordingly just to add a sense of realism to the animation. Make sure you don't let go because you will deposit a keyframe in another layer. Let's review the whole sequence so far. Move the playhead back to the start and press play on the play controls. Well done, we're airborne. What you can do is choose several keyframes at random and just nudge them differently so it doesn't look like we've repeated those 10 frames. So I've guided you through 3 scenes now. There are several more things for me to explain in detail, but for the rest of the animation I want you to watch it and have a go yourself. I'll put text labels up at key moments, so look out for those. I'll talk you through animating using a motion guide. I'll explain onion skinning in detail. We'll create the graphics for the laser beam and the deflector shield, and I'll show you how to break a bitmap image up and convert them into 8 separate symbols which we'll use for the final explosion. We're going to use a classic motion guide here just to create a better effect of movement. Right click the Gurney layer and select Add Classic Motion Guide. Insert a blank keyframe over the first frame of the Gurney symbol. Begin your line from the guide layer, making sure you start it from the centre of the Gurney symbol. Using the selection tool you can click and drag your line to create a curve. I'm changing it to yellow just so it stands out against the blue. Click in the last available keyframe in the Gurney layer and drag it to the blank keyframe. You should get a new keyframe appear. Move your Gurney symbol to the end of the motion guide and drop the Gurney symbol onto the end of the motion guide. Go back to the first frame in the Gurney layer and right click, Create Classic Tween. Advance the playhead forward to see the effect. Don't forget to scale the symbol down on the last frame. You can click on the guideline to change it. It should snap to the centre of the symbol. You can finesse your guideline to get the perfect arc. So I'm creating a new layer here called Green Circle. This represents the flash from the laser gun. Using the oval tool, click and drag the desired shape. Use the gradient transform tool to manipulate the gradient. What we're looking for is a faded outline. Make sure the end colour of your gradient has an alpha of 0. I'm using simple keyframing here. So I'm starting my laser blast in a new layer. I've drawn a simple rectangle with a green gradient. Make sure the end colour of your gradient has an alpha of 0. Use the gradient transform tool to manipulate the gradient. I've eyed off every single layer apart from the laser blast, and it's really helpful to change the document colour to black. It means you can see the end of your faded gradient. Turn it into a symbol. So I'm using onion skinning for the first time in this tutorial. I'm using it so I can make decisions on how to change the scale and position of my laser based on the previous image in the sequence. I can look back and forward in time. Again, I'm using the onion skin function to see the end of my laser graphic. I'm moving it slightly in front to give the illusion that the laser is being fired and moving forward. Set the last keyframe to an alpha of 0. All I need to do now is create a classic tween. Perhaps I'll stick with a black background for now. All we need to do now is introduce one visible frame in a new layer, which we've called glow. This will be a flash of green when the laser fires. Keep reviewing your animation until you're happy with the placement of each object. I tried to use the onion skin feature there, but actually it wasn't working. So I'm going to remove the keyframe back so I can see it in relation to everything else. I'm going to move it physically into space and then move the keyframe itself back to the right position. In frame 1, the circle is very small. There's an instance of the symbol in frame 4, an instance again in frame 7, and a last instance at frame 10. They're all scaled slightly differently and positioned in a certain way to give the illusion of a fire burst. So again, all we need to do is copy those frames, advance the playhead forward and put them in the right place. I'm just tidying up the blank keyframes now. It just makes things look neat and tidy in the timeline. You don't have to do it doesn't affect the animation in any way. I've decided to change my document background colour to a mid-grey tone. What I'm doing here is I'm moving the goody symbol back slightly on each fire, which acts as a recoil effect. You can right click on a keyframe and select clear keyframe. If we want to continue to move the goody symbol, it makes sense to stop the guide layer in its tracks by inserting a blank keyframe at the right place, so that it's not affected by the guide layer in the future. So we have to create the illusion that the good guy has seen his enemy and turned around and sped off at pace. I copied the symbol of the goody into a new frame and changed the width so it looks like it has been squeezed. Once you've squeezed it, use the tint function and select dark grey. I've moved the centre point of the symbol to the lower left, so when I go to rotate it, it rotates from that part of the symbol, not the centre. Do this twice and set values of -5 and -2.5 in the transform window. Now animate the rotated craft so it looks like it's in a hurry. Okay, this is easy to get wrong. We've already made the fireburst, so why make it again? Some of you will be saying, you should have put it in a movie clip and dragged it from the library. Select all the relevant frames that you made earlier. Paste them into the correct place further along. Select the Use Multiple Frames from the onion skin options, and then most importantly select all 3 layers by clicking the actual layers. You can then flip the entire block horizontally and move them into place next to the bad guy. I'll leave it up to you to see if you can change the colour from green to red. Create a new layer called Laser Deflect. Here you're going to have to visualise a laser hitting a force field and bouncing off it. Use lines, and over several keyframes use this selection tool to draw over the sections you intend to remove. This is probably the hardest step now. Copy the last instance of your Baddie symbol, the one after it stops flashing red, and copy it into a new layer. Draw a rectangle over the symbol and using the line tool, draw intersecting lines to create 8 different segments. Move it up away from the symbol and break the symbol apart by pressing Command or Control B. This breaks the symbol, leaving the original .png file. Press Command B again. Place the grid carefully back over the broken bitmap PNG graphic. With the selection tool, click in each segment and press Command G, which will group it. Do this for all 8. Use the outline tool to see the edges of the group and convert each one into a symbol. Copy them all into their own layer and delete the creation layer, as this will always have something of the broken bitmap left and will really mess up your animation. You won't be able to use motion tween. I'm making new layers to put each individual component into its own separate layer. This means we can animate each one. They all start from the same point. So as you can see, they're all still in one layer. Click the outline mode so you just see the outlines of each symbol. Select the second one and paste it into the layer above. Because that layer's outline isn't switched on, you will see it appear in its new layer. Repeat this process for the next 6. I actually put 9 layers, so I've actually deleted that one there. I didn't need it. Experiment with types of motion like ease out to see what effect you get. Remember to select the last frame in all 8 layers and set the alpha to 0. Okay, so now it's up to you to refer to the original storyboard and finish the animation. Mine's at the end with some cheesy sound effects. Remember, at the end of your animation, tidy up all the extended frames that you see so all layers end at the same time. If you want my development file with all the assets, then drop me a line via my website at william-gurney.com and I'll be happy to send it to you.